and welcome back to the Rainbow Palace. Alright, so there has been a lot going on this week, from shopping to renovations. So I thought that we would start with something simple. So if you guys don't know, I love chandeliers. I love chandeliers. And
you see, Mr. Powers, I love gold.
What he said. So that means all this silver foil is gonna have to go. So this week we're gold foiling the ceiling. First we're gonna need gloves, brush, glue, a tray, ruler. I actually got this glue from Amazon. Basically, the instructions said to do 2 parts water to 1 part glue. So I took an empty container and I filled that halfway with glue. And then took an empty container and filled that with water. And then you want to mix, and I mean really mix. You want this to really be mixed together so that it can be smooth when you apply it to the ceiling. It makes it easier for the gold foil to stick as well. I'm using Barnabas Black Gold, 24 karat. It comes in 25 sheet increments. I'm sorry, that's my contract. Yeah, that's why I have to film a voiceover. This is basically how it comes, and this is what one sheet looks like, and that's what it looks like when you breathe on it, which is something you do not want to do. So after I got everything set up, I began to apply the glue. I used the foam roller, but I'm not gonna lie, realizing later on it wasn't working as well as I thought it would. So I ended up switching to a sponge brush, and honestly that just worked so much better for application. It did take a little bit longer, but honestly it was worth it. I made sure to go from left to right and back and forth, because you want to make sure that you fill in all those porous surfaces with the glue so that everything will adhere properly. And then I went over with a wet cloth and just wiped off any excess that ended up on the plaster that I didn't want.
Two hours later.
After letting that dry, I ended up coming back and applied a second coat. Guys, this took a really long time, to be honest with you. My arms started to get tired. But it took a lot of trust the process. So I'm very excited to see how this turns out.
Much later.
And this is a close-up of me applying the first few sheets. Remember that first sheet that I blew in the beginning? Yeah. So I had to apply that with my fingers. You don't want to do that. You're gonna get oil and everything on there, but it was the only way I could do it because I had no technique. So I kind of had to pull a Midas touch and apply a few pieces that way. Later on, I ended up using the paper that it came on, and you had to go really slow to not cause any wind disturbance. But I gently pressed them to the ceiling, and this seemed to work really well. A few hours later, this is what we had. As you can see, I then had another technique where, I folded up the tissue that came with it And I would basically apply a piece of the gold foil, let it hang, and then use that other piece of tissue to smooth everything out. I also didn't do any like strategic placement that I've seen on the YouTube tutorials. It was more like a freestyle art deco type of idea. You can thank my ADHD for that. I did not have the patience to do that. But honestly, this was like a 3-day process. There was so much going on at the house. Some good, some bad, some in-betweens. Yeah, so I had to take breaks. But basically, I think this is like day 2 of putting up the gold foil. And I kind of got into this like rhythm, and it became kind of relaxing. So this is basically me putting on the final last few pieces of foil. I was really excited about this because it had taken like all day. But she's starting to come together. She looks so good. This is basically where we left off, where all the foil had been applied, and I kind of let it wait while the glue dried. And then the next step was to burnish. And for those of you who don't know, burnishing is basically a professional technique where you're flattening down the foil to allow it to adhere to the glue and the surface better. Kind of hardens it at the same time. It makes it more durable. It also helps fill in and smooth out any of those seams that the foil made, so that it looks all flat, blended, and like one whole sheet. How beautiful is this? Insert dirty joke here. I was kind of nervous about this because initially when I was reading this, it was talking about using the burnishing stone, and I didn't want to do that, but a natural fibered fluffy brush is the next best thing to use. I ended up using the excess pieces that like fell off and used them to fill in any spaces and crevices that I didn't get with the full sheets. That way I didn't waste anything, but also helped give it a more filled in look. And here she is. Wow. Guys, I cannot believe I did this. I also really need to stop touching this chandelier. So yeah, after a ton of sheets, I had a few left over, and I decided to do a little take-home project. There are these 2 sconces on the sides underneath the chandelier, and I decided to gild those too because they need to match. And you know what, guys? It was worth it. It is such a small detail, but it makes such a big difference in this entryway. But yeah, hope you guys guys enjoyed, and come back later for some more DIYs and renovation treats. Bye!